What do you know about Fender black panel black Tolex amps? Because clearly you don't know enough. Everyone needs to be treated to 2 hours of info dump courtesy of Dave. A couple weeks ago, Dave and I were on our way to rehearsal. They closed the freeway down when we were about 12 miles from our exit. And I thought, this is a great opportunity to film another episode of Special Interest Hour. We missed all of rehearsal except for the very last song. Does that guy know that that's a way station, not an exit?
Well, he's going to do the...
Oh, thinks he can beat everyone?
Yeah, which is like completely illegal.
Oh, this guy too. Oh, jeez.
Yeah,
anyway.
they're in a hurry. They're in a hurry, you know.
Doesn't matter that we're already a half hour late to practice.
Yeah. They were all like basically little student amps.
Okay.
And this one is a Valco, but it's called English Electronics Tone Master. And so...
Does it have a cool acronym like Valco?
No, but it's definitely Valco.
Oh, okay.
And I looked it up, and I found, sure enough, English Electronics. And they made several amps that kind of look like this, but different variations. Like I saw one online that has the exact same speaker from 1956 in it, but it's got completely different electronics. It's got octal preamp tubes, and Eric's has a 9-pin preamp tube, which came out in 1957. Oh. So what they did was they probably made this in 57 and just changed it because it's a better tube. It's a 9-pin. I could not find a schematic that matched this at all. Most of them were not even close.
Is that why you were drawing the schematic that I found on the poster?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, I was trying to like figure out what they were doing, but it was so goofy, and somebody had been in there and changed some things around. So I didn't know.
Oh, speak of the devil.
And I told them I have it practice tonight.
Okay.
Because somebody else had gotten in and screwed around and did something. They changed the volume the tone pot out, and you could tell they kind of hacked it. And then they changed some other capacitors out that, like, is that what came in the factory and they did it right, or did they try to enhance it? I don't know. And the lead dress was just awful. I mean, it was like, you know, Millie just wired it up on a bench in Chicago somewhere, and they just said, hey, just wire from here to here.
Who's Millie?
You know, they hired women to do this. They hired women to solder. Yeah, they did. There wasn't much training. There wasn't really a just wire it up from here to here. I mean, the engineering was not very good. But Leo Fender had mostly women that made all of his amps.
Really?
And they were the best amps ever made.
Okay, I need to read a biography now.
Because the engineering was so rock solid, and he worked with all of them to train them. No, I'm not disparaging any of the workers.
I got
It's just that it was all hand done, and there wasn't, you know, they were doing a Montgomery Ward's one, and then they were doing a Sears next, and they were doing a Wahoo next, and let's make a couple English ones. You know, there wasn't consistency. When you get good at manufacturing, you do the same thing over and over and over and over again.
Right.
And you get really good at it.
Yes.
There wasn't consistency, and like I've opened enough Valco amps up, and they're just like a spaghetti factory. I mean, there isn't, you know, with Fenders, you had a board. You had a phenolic board, and everything was dressed real nice. In fact, after Leo Fender left the Fender Corporation, CBS had to put in new components because their quality control was not nearly what Mr. Fender would insist on.
Whoa!
And they were getting oscillations because the lead dress wasn't quite right.
Oh, okay.
You know, he had left. Fender was a genius, and the guy had his act completely together.
Okay, so I know I said I needed to read a biography. How many do you own?
I have a book on Fender. It's really interesting. It's super interesting. It's truly the history of modern music. Every guitar amplifier that's made today pays homage to Leo Fender. Every single one.
Yeah. Righteous.
Jim Marshall, who designed the Marshall amplifier.
I always hate Marshalls.
Well, no, it's a sound that I just don't care for. But a lot of guys absolutely love them. It's a sound of like the hard rockers all love Marshalls. And they're actually good products. But what all Jim Marshall did was copy a 59 Fender Bassman amp. And there were certain components that he couldn't get in England that Leo Fender could get here. He couldn't get 6L6 tubes, so he used EL34s, which are a little bit... they take the same pin out, but they were more readily available in English. EL is a English designator for tubes. Tweed basements they fetch a lot of money. I've had them and played them. They're not me. It's a tweed sound. It has its own thing. It's kind of like a more distorted kind of a thing, which is what Jim Marshall's amps are.
Okay, and you prefer
cleaner amps of 2 generations later. The Fender amps in the 50s had this tweed airline covering on them. Mm-hmm. And a new material called Tolex came out in the very late 50s. And the tweed wouldn't hold up. Basically, lacquered cloth is all it was. Well, the Tolex...
Oh, I'm getting a text from Randy.
This Tolex material was touted as really durable and a lot more professional looking than just airline luggage tweed. The first colors that were out were white and brown. Mm-hmm. And Fender designed a whole new line of amps, completely redesigned from the tweed era to what was called the brown-white era, and it lasted from 1960 till the middle of 63, to the latter of 63. And that's when reverb was being used on Hammond organs. Oh. And reverb was starting to catch on. And Fender wanted to add reverb. So he redesigned the brown-white series of amps to include reverb, but he also was able to make them even more refined sounding, less distorted. The brown whites kind of sound like Marshalls. They're real rock amps. They're a step up from tweeds, but they're still distorted, and they have a harder, more mid-rangey drive to them, in my opinion. If you're asking me what ones I like the black panel amps the best with the black Tolex.
Yeah.
Because they're cleaner, they're very rich sounding, and they're scooped. He scooped the mids, which is what you needed to do.
Yeah.
Because the mids were real prevalent in the tweeds, and they were real prevalent in the brown whites.
Tell everyone always scoop the mids.
He scooped the mids. And then he was using the best speakers that he could get, which he voiced all his amps. He put in, they used a lot of Jensen speakers, and Jensen speakers are just like voiced amazingly perfect for the black Tolex black panel series amps with reverb. Is there any change in the traffic? I mean, it looks like it's still red all the way up to the exit.
Oh, there is a change. It's going to take us 36 minutes to get there.
Talk back to the black panel Fenders. What happened was at the end of 1965, Leo left. His engineers were like, we want to make these amps more high fidelic, and it was a huge mistake. They became silver panel, the silver panel ones, and the silver panel ones, some of them, they wanted to modernize the look, so they took the black panel and they made it a silver panel with the blue stenciling instead of the black with the white letters, which is the classic. Mm-hmm. And then they started changing the circuitry toward about 1968. The silver amps were much more sterile sounding, and later on in the middle to latter 70s, they started really screwing with them, adding master volumes and trying to do some pull boost things that, instead of like redesigning the amps from square one, they tried to band-aid them, just like, what can we do with this? Let's just change this a little bit and add some components here, and then we don't have to, retool or anything. And they just became junky. They didn't sound good. When I first started repairing amps, I get these silver panel amps in, and some of them sounded like the black amps, and I'd look at the circuitry, I go, well, it's the same. This is like 67, 68. They hadn't messed with them yet. Then I get a 72. There wasn't books, there wasn't internet. And I just call Fender up. I need some schematics. Could you send me a blah, blah, blah? And they go, yeah, sure. And they would. They'd mail them to me.
Whoa. So
I'd get them, and I'd look at the schematics, and I'd go, well, here's a 100K ohm resistor in the old one, and now they got a 56K ohm in here. So I thought, I'm going to just turn these things into black panels. The ones that I can, that they hadn't messed with, like that they changed transformers, or they went to an ultra linear model, which was like, they're awful. They boosted the power in there. Their whole thing was like to play, places that were twice as big as Pine Knob, so they wanted to like boost the power. It was a bad idea. People would come to me and I go, hey, how do you like this amp? That's okay. It's a little brittle sound. I go, let me rebuild it to like the black one. And they go, well, what will it do? I go, trust me. And I do it, and they go, that's it. And I was the first one that I heard
That you
of
know
to
of,
do
yeah.
it. Because I started back in the 80s doing it. I was playing them out, and I'm going, oh, it's night and day. I was playing solid state, and I just could never happy with it. And I went back to the Soul Vibrolux, like, oh, yeah, that's it. That's half of your sound. In fact, even I can make a mediocre guitar sound great through a great amp. But I can take a great guitar, and if you got an amp, it's going to sound awful. So the amp is actually, in the big picture, more important than the guitar.
Okay.
I remember the Disaster.
Disaster, yep.
I was playing a black Telecaster that I had that guitar made, the parts made.
Is that the one with the belt sand thing on the back?
Yeah, it looks like it's dragged behind a truck, but it's new.
Yeah.
It's called a Relic. I had a guy build one to my specs for a Relic, and then I researched it, and I put really, really good pickups in it. And that guitar sounds absolutely great. I took the thin line one of yours with the not so good pickups, and I played it.
Why?
Just because I wanted to play it. You know, I just put a new neck on it.
Okay, sure.
I wanted to see how it was. And I went, that doesn't sound like the black one. So I put the black one back on for Act 2. It was like, oh yeah. You know, like, I can tell. Nobody else probably could. It was probably a lot to do with the pickups, but it's everything in an instrument that makes it good. Mm-hmm. It's everything. It's the wood, it's the materials in the bridge.
Yeah, like we were talking about in the last episode.
Even something like the tuners.
Except the brand of batteries does not matter.
There's one guy out there. You can't use Rayovac. You got to use Eveready. And I'm going, come on. Come on.
It's a battery.
Yeah, well, it's the minutia thing. You know, it's the same thing like these stereo guys.
Oh, those cables.
I go down to the hardware store and get copper 16 gauge ripcord, and I tin the leads, and man, mine sounds real good. You don't need any more. Anything more is just
overkill.
Past the point of diminishing returns.
Yes.
But you got to hear these cables. I go, let me see them. And they're like you see cables are at Pine Knob for the power. So he played it, and it really did sound good. And then I went home and I turned the 2240 Marantz on with the JBLs. I turned it on and go, I think mine sounds just as good. You know, but it's in the perception. He goes, oh yeah, I could really hear the difference in those cables.
Like, can you though?
Okay, but is that like me saying I played the thin line Telecaster and it didn't sound near as good as the Black Custom? You know, like I could tell the difference, but maybe other people couldn't.
You remember when we did that first experiment of switching between the vinyl and the CD?
Yes.
That, you notice a difference. But if he had that like with cables and he could just flip a knob, maybe we could hear it.
We're going to miss almost all of Prague. Jesus Christ. we've been stuck here for an hour and a half.
It's literally special interest hour.
I got to call Scott because I got to get that.
What do you got to call Scott?
Because I got a part I was going to try to get to him.
18-inch or something, I forget, an Eminence speaker.
Yeah.
Was for a subwoofer.
Yeah.
A vintage. No, it wasn't a real vintage one, but it was an older one.
That's not a very efficient speaker. And their biggest ones were N's, and then maybe L's. But those are almost impossible to find. They didn't really. Those are like PA stuff. But like C10 N's and C12 N's, you can't, and no better. The best sounding speakers Fender ever put in their black amps.
I looked it up, and they're selling for $1,500 for a pair of these things.
Copperheads?
No, this is this old Jensen that I got out
Oh.
of the work.
Oh yeah. In fact, I used to buy Hammond tone cabinets when I'd see them, and they'd be stocked with Jensen P10Rs and what's the next one?
P10Q.
P10Q. Yeah, those are the ones in the 59 basements, and people want like $900 for them. You could sell that on eBay for a lot more than giving it to that guy.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to do. But I thought, I better just look this up. You know, I was going to sell it to him for $100. I'm like, oh no, I'm not selling this for $100.
No, just get him like you could get him a 10-inch Legend, Eminence Legend. You can probably get those. Those are fine. You'll love those. They're real similar. I'm at the top of the freeway here now. Everybody's getting off the highway here. So, all right, maybe I'll see you after practice if I ever get there.
Okay.
All right, buddy.
Sounds good.
Adios.
Bye.